Welcome, listeners, to Thru the Sightglass, a podcast that dives deep into the fascinating world of craft beer and celebrates the incredible individuals who shape its vibrant landscape. Join us on a journey where we explore the nuances of this amazing industry and the remarkable people who contribute to its richness and diversity. And today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Ian of Blue Ox Malthouse. Ian, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for coming through, guys. We love sharing the Malt House and preaching the good word of local barley.
Absolutely.
We loved it. So we got to do a little bit of a tour before, so we'll get into that later. But before we get started, give us a little intro. Who are you? What's your role here? And then where did you grow up?
So my name's Ian Goering, and I am the Director of Operations here at Blue Ox. And I have been brewing in Maine and New Hampshire for more than a dozen years at this point in time. I originally was born in Philadelphia. I spent the first half of my life in St. Louis, Missouri. There was a really big brewery there that I went to quite a bit as a child. My dad liked the free samples, and I liked the Clydesdales.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
And then we moved to Maine when I was in middle school.
Okay.
And so my family's been here ever since.
Gotcha. Very cool. I love that. We've loved Maine. I grew up going to St. Louis. I lived in St. Louis for a little while, too. So
Whereabouts?
I lived downtown.
Okay.
I was there for like a year and a half. My dad grew up in St. Louis, like in one of the suburbs. I can't even remember the name of it.
Sure.
But
I lived in Florissant.
okay. I'll be able to talk to him about it. But my mom also loves the Clydesdales, and we always grew up going to the Cardinals games. So we could see the Clydesdales and drink the bubbly fizzy beer that they have there. That's really good too, as well.
Yeah. It was. I've got fond memories of going to that brewery as a child. When I was really little, I wanted to be a Clydesdale when I grew up. And my sister teases me that that came true.
Oh, nice.
She's like, "Yeah, you're like a workhorse in the beer industry."
You are. That's amazing. You are.
That's
I love
a good embodiment. I like that.
I love that. So what was it like growing up in Maine?
Coming from St. Louis, it was quite the culture shock because St. Louis is obviously like a big urban place, and I moved to rural coastal Maine, which is beautiful and awesome, and I feel very fortunate having had that experience growing up here. And I'm living in Maine by choice now.
Right.
I've got roots elsewhere in the world, in the country, and I'm here because I want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
We have that sentiment. We would be in Maine if we didn't love the West Coast as much.
Yeah.
So like we love Maine so much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Community, landscape. I mean, it just has everything that we enjoy.
Yeah. For sure.
It's nice being in a place that has such. I'm a real outdoorsy person, and as long as you're into something outdoors, it's here for you in Maine.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's great that I can be saltwater fishing in the morning, hiking in a mountain in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
It's all here for us.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Incredible.
So you said you had a sister. Are there any other siblings, or just the two of y'all?
Just a little sister.
Okay,
Oh,
very
okay.
nice.
Yep.
Nice. So you got to lead the way.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would say maybe she was leading the way.
Oh,
But
okay.
the
younger
she's
sister.
great.
I'm a younger sister. I feel that.
Yeah, she's a powerhouse of a human. So
Nice.
Very cool.
Okay.
Very cool.
How far apart are y'all?
3-4 years.
Okay, not bad.
Yep.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's about what? my
It's like
brother
close
and
enough to be together, but
Yeah.
enough distance that you don't maybe feel smothered by your.
We
sibling.
weren't in high school together. She was a freshman like the year after I graduated.
you go.
So we
There you
never
go.
had school together, which I think either causes or prevents a lot of conflict,
Right.
probably
Very
both.
true.
Mhm.
Very true.
Yeah.
And then once we were both graduated, we started getting along really well, and now we're good friends.
Yeah. very
Nice.
cool.
There you go. What'd you go to school for?
For like college. So I went a couple of times. My first time was a fine art degree.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm part of the fine arts to brewing pipeline that
Oh,
is
wow.
all
Yes.
too popular.
Yes.
We've heard
That
several
is
people.
that is very factual.
Yeah, some of the best visual artists and musicians you'll know also make really good lager. You know?
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that phrase.
And then when I started brewing, I went back to school and got an associate's in mechanical engineering.
wow.
Okay.
And I was
Yeah.
already brewing and kind of knew that I wanted this to be my career, but I wanted to get more of kind of just that mechanical, mathematical, scientific side down. And then I got a certificate from American Brewers Guild for
Okay.
my brewing credentials.
I see.
And I'd been brewing for about 5 years when I'd got that.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Very cool.
So you were already in the industry. You were doing it. You were literally just getting essentially like a certification saying like yes, now I could put this on a resume.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed doing it that way because I had the experience. It was really easy for me to suss through the program and say like, oh, that's interesting, or I'll use that every day,
Yeah.
or okay, I'll go find that when I need that.
Right.
I see.
Where, I've had some guys that have worked with me before that might be like fresh out of school and don't have the hands-on experience. And sure, they know how to do a yeast cell count, but they don't know how to put a tri-clamp on a tank.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I found it very beneficial having that experience going into it.
Yeah, we've talked about this, a handful of times before. I think the beer theory is great. Beer schools are amazing. But I think it's a rough transition. I just started off keg washing. I did the old-fashioned trade way of doing all the grunt shit first and then went into production.
These hands have cleaned so many growlers.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's always been interesting because I've worked with people that have come straight from school. And as they're like learning the process and you're running through them like a CIP, SOP, and they're like, but wait, we didn't do this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, why would we need to if we know that this is the consistency that like we can do it? And I can see it kind of trip them up and I'm like, I understand you have a lot of knowledge in there and that's perfectly fine. But like, understanding, like you said, what parts do you implement and what parts are like, okay, that's good to know, but it doesn't need to be like every single time or every single day.
Yeah, I definitely remind myself because I like to get into the weeds on stuff sometimes and remind myself that we've been doing this since before thermometers.
Good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, they actually have. Yeah, that's amazing. Do you remember the beer or the craft beer that really made you think, I want to do this as a career?
Oh man, as a career, it was probably home brewing. I was in art school down in Philadelphia.
What year was this, really quick?
This would have
Not to date you at all.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I graduated in 2007, so it probably would have been like 2006.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
2005, 2006, somewhere in there. And I decided I was going to start baking bread. I don't really remember the thought process behind that. I still do a little bit of baking. I keep a sourdough culture at home.
Love it.
Nice.
So I was baking bread, and we had a friend who was home brewing, and he was like, "Hey, man, you're baking bread. Like, why don't you come homebrew with me?" And
That's how they get you.
Well, and I was like in art school, and drinking a lot,
As artists do.
as artists do. Yeah, exactly.
And normal people.
Yeah,
But
totally.
when it's an artist, it's inspiration.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
You're
got
not
it,
just
got
drunk.
It, got it.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
So I brewed with them, and it was awesome. I'd never done that before, and it was really interesting. And we had a party 3 weeks later, and that was like the
Right.
beer we drank, and that was a lot of fun. But I didn't have any of the gear, and I didn't really live in a place or with people where I could keep doing it. So it was something that was like, when I've got the time and the money, I'm going to get into it. So a couple of years later, I'd moved back up to Maine, and my pop gave me a homebrewing kit for Christmas.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
then it was like game on.
Game on. There you go.
So that's what got me into like brewing.
Gotcha.
Hefeweiss is the beer that made me want to go pro.
Okay.
Nice. That's not a beer I think we've heard picked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's if I could wave a magic wand, I would start a brewery that only made wheat beers. But unfortunately, at least in New England, that's not going to be a profitable
Right.
business plan at this point in
Yeah,
time.
especially with Allagash, just right down the way.
Yeah,
With Allagash White, you're
Yeah.
like, oh fuck.
yeah, they do a pretty good job there.
Yeah.
But my dad's family has been involved in wheat farming since the beginning of time, and so I've always been kind of like drawn to wheat beers and that way, and German beers in general. And as I started to learn about how decoction brewing basically came out as a solution to needing to have specific temperatures when the thermometer doesn't exist.
Right.
And that just like blew my mind, like using the physics in that kind of a way. And the flavors, that strong banana and clove flavor just really blew me away, that you could get something that tasted like bananas but didn't have anything banana in it.
Absolutely.
And so I went way down the rabbit hole on learning, about the open fermentation, the skimming, the decoction brewing, just, completely into the weeds with the Hefeweiss.
Oh, nice.
And then realized that, hey, I'm homebrewing like 2-3 times a week. Maybe I should look into this. I was working for a giant computer company named after a fruit at that point in time, and was wanting to seek other opportunities for employment.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to a friend that had a brewery going at that time. and said, "Hey, man, like we've met at I'm sure you guys have been at Navarre Res.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I've met you there. I'm home brewing a bunch. I'll come sweep your floors if you'll let me ask you a question at the end of every day." That guy, his name's Tom Bull.
Damn.
And so Tom goes, "Yeah, man. Well, if you mop the floors, I'll let you ask 2 questions." So that was my foot in the door
Nice.
in the industry.
Oh, that's so quintessential. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. I feel like people who homebrew either like jump like full force into it or like end up not doing it.
That was even
so.
that's what I did to get on at Seven Seas. I think in about 2 months' time, I gave him like 8 resumes with a different cover letter each time. But at the end of it, it's like, I will literally scrub your toilets. Just let me work in the brewery.
It's the right, telling me that you're like, I've ranked this many beers online or whatever. I'm like, no, this isn't going to work out for you. You've worked a landscaping job and you are willing to sweep my floors. Like, let's talk.
Let's talk.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's hard work. It's really hard work. So you got started sweeping, mopping floors, asking questions.
Yeah, I'll say like day 1 or 2, they had me running a boil though.
Damn.
Tom was like, "Hey, so you like homebrew a lot, right? You know what's going on?" And I'm like, "Sure, yeah." And he's like, "Cool, like I'm gonna go get lunch. Like here's your hop schedule." So a little bit of a trial by fire, and
Nice.
they said that was my foot in the door, and that was a great spot at that point in time. That brewery was called Bull Jagger, and they were lagers only.
Oh, that's awesome.
In like 2011.
Yeah, what a great way to start, seriously.
Yeah. That was my entry. It's been, all downhill since then. So,
Heck yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
No, I love this industry.
Nice.
Absolutely. I'm here for the brewers and the people and the beer for sure.
Heck
I
yeah.
love it so much. Okay, so you're brewing, and you've probably brewed at several other places. Do you want to chat about that, or do you want to jump into how you got here?
Sure. Yeah, we can run through it quick. So, Bull Jagger closed down, and the owners split way, and Tom went on to open up another brewery called Dirigo Brewing that had gone for a few years. And at that point in time, I went and brewed at a little place called Blue Lobster down in New Hampshire. Was there for a couple of years. It closed down. When you talk to Todd later, he'll tell you that you're not a real brewer until you've been fired from a brewery and shut down a brewery.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
I love it.
I've gone through a couple of closures early on. But when that place closed, it was kind of a silver lining. I was upset. I didn't know what to do. I thought, like, this is it for the beer industry. And Todd Mott reached out and said, "Hey guys, like I heard you're looking for a job. I need some guys. Like, come join my team."
Gotcha.
Wonderful.
Which I grew up down that way in southern Maine, and I was aware of Todd because he's kind of like the beer industry hero. And when I started brewing and decided that I wanted to make this my career, I intentionally set out to try to learn from experienced guys and like
smart.
learn from that old crowd. So it started with Tom, who had been brewing in Maine for a long time, and then getting the opportunity to work with Todd was just amazing.
Yeah.
He's the one who sent me to beer school, so having him as my mentor while going through beer school,
That's
it's like
pretty sweet.
I
that's
couldn't plan
incredible.
that any better. I also lived right behind Tributary, which was super awesome.
So
being
you
able
just,
to
walk.
Yeah, walk to work every day, or I'd ski there in the winter.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
It was a lot of
Quintessential.
fun.
Yeah, living in the van does make it easy. They're like, "Oh, we got a 5 a.m. start." It's like, "Cool, I'll park in the parking lot."
Yeah.
I was wake up at 4:59 and walk in.
Exactly. So I started off as basically like keg washer, growler washer at Tribs, and worked my way all the way up to head brewer. Was
Nice.
my position when I left. And when I left, I was wanting to get some bigger brewery experience. So I did a short stint at Northwoods Brewing in New Hampshire.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's great. I love those guys. I have a great great relationship with them. They're a great customer of ours. But while I was there, an opportunity opened up in Portland to be the head of operations at a new startup called Apre that was doing hard seltzers and ciders.
Okay.
And I took that job. All my friends and family thought I'd lost my mind because I'm a very conservative, like German brewer, and I spent most of my career talking crap on seltzer.
Right.
And then here you are making.
And then here I am
overseeing
going
it.
and taking
Yeah.
that job. I wanted to kind of just prove that I was like a solutions-oriented guy, that I wasn't a one-trick pony, and knowing I knew that if I took that job and was successful, nobody could say, oh, he's just taking Todd's recipes.
Right.
Because Todd might be even more conservative than I am when it comes to that sort of
Gotcha.
thing.
Yeah.
So I felt like I needed to kind of carve out my own reputation.
Okay.
Beyond lagers, beyond beer, beyond tributary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really proud of the work I did there, but my soul is in beer.
Yeah.
And particularly the grain side of beer.
Mm-hmm.
Mashing and grain has always been my biggest interest and like motivating factor.
Yeah.
Right.
So I started looking around to see what opportunities there were. I had bought a house in Lisbon, and it just so worked out that this opportunity opened up for me to come onto the team here. I started as an account manager, and I did that for the first year. And then starting the beginning of this year, I've been in the director of operations role.
Oh, nice.
Getting my fingers involved in the production planning side a bit more. I still do a lot of customer support, for
Gotcha.
our existing customers.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally. And you said something about malt earlier too. You said was your dad? So did somebody
Well,
farm malt?
He was a wheat farmer.
Wheat farmer.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
it.
Okay, I was trying to remember what you said about it.
My parents grew up in Kansas,
Okay.
and so the wheat runs
Yep.
Yeah, runs
real,
deep.
real deep out there. And so my dad's family, I think it was my grandfather, is probably the one who stopped farming
Okay, I see.
wheat. But that's the history is
Yeah.
a lot of wheat farming.
So you already had this familial tie to grain.
Yes, but I wouldn't say I was a farmer
Right.
No, yeah.
by
Right.
any
It was in
means.
your family, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like you grew up at the crack of dawn. You're out there on the tractor.
Yeah.
No, I would be telling a bold-faced lie if I said
Yeah.
I was ever involved in that. But I always felt drawn and connected, knowing that was part of the family history. So, like I said, wheat beers. Before I even knew different styles of beer, if it said, "Oh, this one's a wheat beer," oh yeah, like that's the one I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's so wild. Okay, so you got here. Can you tell us a little bit about Blue Ox and how its origin stories and kind of how it got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Blue Ox was founded by a guy, Joel Alex, who couldn't make it in today because of the snow. Joel's background is in, I'm going to mess this up, but you'll get the idea. It's in sustainable agriculture systems.
Okay.
Okay.
And basically making rural agricultural communities more profitable and sustainable.
Very
Didn't
cool.
have a connection to beer. He'll tell you that he was more of a wine person when he got into this to start off with. But he's really passionate about community and farms and agriculture. And the cash crop in Maine is potatoes.
Gotcha.
And with crop rotation, barley is traditionally one of the rotation crops with potatoes. And farmers were really just taking a loss on that in general.
Okay.
And so Joel came and said, look, you got this burgeoning craft beer scene that's really exploding in
Yeah.
Maine and making international ripples in many ways.
Very much so.
You guys should get involved in this. But we were lacking the infrastructure because most brewers aren't going to be able to take raw grain from a farm and be able to do too much with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this middle value added, step of malt houses needed to have this infrastructure to be invested in to basically help bring more money to these rotation crops to the farmers in northern Maine. And so that is the inspiration and the start of Blue Ox Malthouse.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So as Joel started to research that, for various reasons, floor malting became the solution and the answer. And a big part of that is because it is so labor intensive, we're able to provide more jobs. So it adds into that community aspect of it.
Right.
Spreading the money to the farm, spreading the money to the local communities. And it's really great when people can, barley's grown in Maine, malted in Maine, brewed in Maine, drank in Maine, and the dollar stays here the whole time.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing.
By our math, 85 cents of every dollar spent with us stays in the state of Maine.
Oh, that's
Wow.
incredible.
And the other 15 cents stays in the Northeast for the most part.
Right.
Which is just a great, everybody likes that story.
Everybody loves
Yeah,
that.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's like not a good reminder to me because I think it's something we always think about, but to show people how intimately so many facets of this industry are connected to one another and like thrive and need each other. And I think like as times have gotten hard and people are like, why does this feel so different or fucked up? And it is because it's like you see people are importing goods from elsewhere when it's like they have stuff they can buy locally in state, or somebody is they're not as focused on like the craft beer that they want to buy in the community, and it just is like we are all connected to one another, and if we all dig in and help each other, that's all going to grow.
Yeah, and that's always been the great thing about the beer industry. There's not really any other industry I can think of where we help each other out and collaborate like we do. I always like to tell the story. When I was at that first brewery brewing for Tom, we had a day where our pump went down in the middle of a brew day.
Oh, perfect.
We were right across the street from Allagash. Allagash sends over one of their engineers to fix our pump and see us through the rest of the day.
Damn.
What other industries do that?
No, absolutely.
It's not about I mean, that industry row in itself that y'all have, like all those breweries that are there, like it just goes to show like there's competition, but at the same time, like if y'all are there together, y'all are all boosting up each other as well. And then the collaboration and willingness to help. I think that's the one thing that probably has kept us in Maine the longest to talk to all the breweries that we have in Maine. I think the Maine has been the state that we've talked to the most breweries in. It's because I feel like the Maine beer people are just different. And the community, it feels a lot like it was probably back in the day of like when people were helping each other out and supporting and I don't know, boosting each other up. And we've loved it.
It's got to be a community effort. Mainers are really tied to their communities. We're really proud of them. And we're here to help each other out. And I think a lot of us take a lot of identity in being brewers and like focal points of our communities.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I was thinking about this when you were talking and saying it's almost like as the slight declination of craft beer and breweries in the industry, I think it puts people more on edge, and so they feel whether it's more competitive or they feel like, well, no, I need to take care and focus on myself first. I don't know, it brings like a type of coldness. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I think if you all boost each other up, it makes everyone better. So
yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I took this Blue Ox job. I do miss brewing, but like I told you guys, I still go out and try to brew as much as I can.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to not be going up on the brew deck.
No, yeah.
But I could be the world's best brewer at the world's best brewery, right? And I'm only going to affect beer like this tiny little percentage, right? But here with, having customers all over the country, I have a greater opportunity to make all of beer better. And to work with everybody and connect people. And it's a very fulfilling position being on the supply side because you can help facilitate that positive growth. And
absolutely.
It's a very rewarding position to be in.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. It sounds like it. You can just like hear your passion, and I love it so much. So that's so great. Why did Joel name it Blue Ox?
So I'm about to shots fired at the Upper Midwest. The legend of Paul Bunyan started in Bangor, Maine.
Oh, okay.
It did. So Bangor, Maine was the original like epicenter of logging in like the New World.
Okay.
And so the legend of Paul Bunyan started there. Joel grew up in Old Town, which is basically a suburb of Bangor.
Okay.
If you're into canoeing and kayaking, you'll know Old Town.
Okay.
That's where they're manufacturing all the canoes. And so with the historic, basically that being the original agricultural product of Maine and like the history of it, he wanted to basically draw connections to his hometown, the agricultural heritage and history of Maine. And it's just such a sweet logo.
It is a very sweet logo. We love it so much. And it's so distinct. I mean, we've been to several breweries in Maine, and you can always find your bag really easy. And it's we love the marketing.
Very recognizable.
Yeah.
It's great. And I think I leaked to you guys very soon. We're going to have a merch shop coming out. So t-shirts, hats, and hoodies and stuff like that will be available.
Yeah, that's so sick. I love that so much. You know those brewers are going to be out there. And even people who are just like close to the industry and know what, Blue Ox is and what y'all are doing. I know we'll probably want to get some.
Oh, absolutely.
And we're going to be on the West Coast and they're going to be like, what Malt House is this? And we're like, oh, it's the really cool one. You said it earlier that y'all are the largest.
So we're the largest floor malting facility in the Americas, largest outside of Europe.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
We'll repeat that. We'll put out a little clip and we'll just repeat that whenever people ask.
When people ask
about what the merch is.
Yeah. Well, how was the transition for you going from brewery and operations to then running the Malt House and this whole other operational side of the beer industry?
So Extra Tough does make a leather pair of Extra Toughs, and that was how I did the transition. I kept the Extra Toughs. I just upgraded to the Carpet Walker model.
I love it.
I was like, where are you going? I was like, oh, I got it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love it so much.
I would say I'm dealing with it I love the customer support aspect. I love it when a brewery calls me up and wants to know my opinion on hops. Or yeast management or something like that.
Yeah.
So I really like problem solving with everybody. And I get out there and try to brew with people as much as I can. When you work in a brewery, you don't go to other breweries. It's like I spent 40 plus hours a week doing this. I'm going to go home and not be at a brewery.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was really giving me the opportunity to go to a lot of my friends' breweries. I was really embarrassed how many people's breweries I hadn't been to.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've known you for 10 years and here I am. So it's been a lot of fun going around and brewing with everybody and working on those projects.
Nice. So giving you some creativity and freedom to do so.
Oh, it's best. I get all the creativity. I don't have to clean anything.
Right.
I just do the photo shoot, take all the credit, walk away. It's beautiful.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, so you were able to take us on the tour, and we got to walk through y'all's facility, and y'all have y'all's old facility that y'all will still be using.
Correct.
But talk us through a little bit about y'all's expansion and kind of what y'all's intentions were behind that and kind of the strategy for y'all moving forward with malting.
Totally. So when we were doing the tour, we saw the smoker running. And what I didn't point out is that smoker was actually the original equipment for the Malt House.
Oh, damn.
And that was super labor intensive. It was kind of, you would steep in that and then put it out on the floor, and then that would double as the kiln.
Oh, wow.
So when we did the initial expansion, which you guys saw as the existing old system, like many expansions go, your new stuff's better than your old stuff. So the old stuff doesn't really work as a pilot system anymore because it's not going to translate up. And that's when that became the smoker.
Gotcha.
So that was probably, I guess, the initial Blue Ox was done in a commercial kitchen up in northern Maine as kind of a proof of concept that it could be done. So then Blue Ox is about 10 years old.
Okay.
Just for reference. So then Joel moved down to Lisbon. He was looking all over the state. The town of Lisbon was very friendly to this type of a business happening. There's some other really interesting agricultural initiatives happening in this town.
Okay.
There's an aquaponics place just up the street that does lettuce and tilapia.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's pretty interesting, yeah. So the town of Lisbon was willing to work. This building existed. And so that's when Blue Ox moved to Lisbon Falls. And then the market was growing. We were seeing steady growth, and it was making sense that we needed to expand. And had needed to expand for a little bit. So I came on to the team right at the beginning of the actual physical expansion. I think it was my first week here. They started knocking down walls to move stuff out.
Got right on it.
Exactly. And so the idea is that we need to, yes, we're local malt for Maine. We're also local malt for New England. But when it comes to premium floor malt, we're really local United States as well. And we need to expand our footprint, our visibility, and our customer base. And we really, we don't want to go around and necessarily compete with the other North American malt houses because we're all local and doing our things. We really want to make it not worth it to import premium malt from overseas.
Right, you want to have an option here in the United States.
And those guys do great work. I've brewed with every malt house under the sun through my career, and I love a lot of the stuff out there, but you don't have to do that. We've got a great quality product right here. You can meet the farmers. We're price competitive. We're absolutely quality competitive. I would say we're better. I'm a little biased in that opinion.
Yeah,
that's okay. It's just preaching your craft.
But it just became apparent that we needed to expand to actually push this mission. And if you look at the original mission of making, rural agricultural communities more economically sustainable, this is how you do it.
Right.
We're bringing the money into Maine. We're keeping it in Maine. We're investing in the infrastructure
Right.
throughout all of the Northeast.
Right.
We, on average, work with 5 family-owned farms in
amazing.
Maine and the Northeast. It's great.
Right.
Those are all, we know the farmers. They're all the best people on earth. We take brewers up there to meet them. And it's it just feels really good when you can follow the entire supply chain.
Right.
Yeah,
in that
you're
kind
making
of a
these
way.
connections.
And you can have that person's phone number and like know, you know, or you're like it's that sense of like connection that is so close and so
Yeah.
awesome.
And the farmers are all beer drinkers too. They'll come down to
Yeah.
Portland and they'll tell us, you know, which breweries they went to, and they'll be having a pint. I grew that, you know.
That's
I
awesome.
grew that malt. That is so cool. I do love that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so y'all are growing and expanding. So can you tell us some of y'all's capacity numbers that y'all went to? Is that something you're allowed to share?
Yeah,
Because I think it's kind of phenomenal.
Absolutely. So before the expansion, we had an output of about 1 million pounds a year, and with this expansion, we can get upwards of about 5 million pounds a year now.
That's a huge expansion.
Yeah.
It was huge expansion. In the world of malt houses, drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
You know,
I see.
Right.
the huge malt houses can just do far more than we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
But in the world of floor malt, that's a lot.
Y'all have it, yeah.
Anybody that's familiar with malting will say it's a lot of dragging that rake around.
Right.
Yeah.
Austin got to do a little bit. I took some pictures
Yeah,
and
a
video.
baby turn.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's so cool to see that. And I think that's something as, you know, people who drink beer, like understanding like the work that goes into just making the malt that then goes in with all these other ingredients.
Yeah.
I think that's the incredible thing of like, it's not just that this grain just like shows up, you know, like I think most people think that it's just like, oh, you just go to the grocery store and there's like a bag of grain.
So when I did my Dance with the Devil making cider and seltzer, I'm really proud of the work I did there. I'm
Yes, I love it.
teasing.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
working in the apple world really made me appreciate the barley world, where you can just call up a Blue Ox and say, hey, I need Pilsner, I need
Right.
Munich malt, pale, whatever, and it's going to show up. Apples just does not have that type of an infrastructure. You know, what's available, when you can get it. It's a lot more complicated. But I've also, through developing these farmer relationships, these brewery relationships, and seeing kind of, you know, how the sausage is made, just realize how much we take that for granted, how much we take modern barley and modern malt for granted, that it's just going to show up, it's going to be right, it's going to convert and work.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not a given.
Yeah.
People have to work really hard, and the entire supply chain is kind of a mystery
It is.
to most of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about beer or the grocery store or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when we take like the farmers or the brewers to go meet the farmers, you can't leave that experience and not then be a customer for life.
Right.
No, absolutely.
I mean, I think we're not brewers, but I'm like, I want to buy merch from y'all. You know, like I probably can't buy malt for y'all because I don't have anything to do it with. But like, you know, but it's like we do. Like, I think seeing the passion across. I mean, I'm sure like if we were to go meet the farmers too, but it's just like seeing that passion and the drive to like help the community and then help the industry and help each other. Like it's very contagious, and I'm like, I want to buy malt. I don't have any reason to buy malt, but I want to buy malt from you. You know, like it's such a cool story and a cool process, and
Yeah, I
just
think
really intricate.
I think there's such importance like in those connections, and I can't overstate it enough because it's just like the story of like making something. When you have it like going and doing a hop harvest, right? Like you get to meet those farmers, you get to see the fields, you get to touch it, and I don't know. There's like there's such a deep sense of connection for me for that, and I'm like, this is important, and it's important like in the variety of facets in a bunch of other industries, but it's because it makes it more personal. It's no longer not personal. Like when you buy stuff at a store, you don't think about like the farm who did what, you know, or you don't even think about the people that package it, like those workers in that factory. But when you get to touch parts of the process, it makes it more human, and I think that's like really important for people to understand as a consumer.
Yeah. And for someone who's listening, I know you took us through a beautiful tour. I should have mic'd you up for that whole thing. But could you give us like a simple, I think straightforward, if someone doesn't know about malt, could you give us a simple explanation of kind of what y'all do here at the Malt House?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for the most part, breweries can't just take the barley from the farm and say, cool, we're good to go.
Right.
It needs to be malted, which is this value-added thing that happens to the barley crop so that brewers and distillers can easily work with it. I'm going to spare everybody the science because it's going to get super boring if we do. But essentially, we need to, those barley kernels, we need to start the germination process for them to grow into a barley plant. And right as that process starts, we need to stop it. And all sorts of crazy biology happens where I think that the analogy I like to use is that barley seeds or cereal grain seeds are kind of like eggs, right? And we know that like eggs have the yolk that's going to feed the baby chicken. So instead of a yolk in a seed, you've got starches in there. And when that kernel gets wet, it's going to activate these enzymes that are going to start to convert those starches into sugars for the baby plant to grow and then, can photosynthesize and do its own thing.
Right.
So we want to get that process started so those enzymes are available and, starting to do that conversion of the starches, but we want to stop it there because the brewers are going to kind of handle the rest of that with the mash and really decide how fermentable they do or don't want that to be.
Right.
And, all of their creativity goes into it at that point. Throughout history, you've kind of got two competing philosophies between the British and the Germans. The British maltsters traditionally would do a ton of work and make really well-modified, over-modified malts. Then the brewers only needed to do one temperature rest when mashing to make beer happen. In Germany, and when I say Germany, I kind of just mean like Central Europe, not Germany as we think of it. The maltsters wouldn't do as much work, and then the brewers would need to do these multiple steps to get it there. And so depending on which culture or philosophy you bought into, where the maltster and the brewer kind of hands off the work is somewhat of a gray area. I would say in modern culture, that English philosophy has won out for the malt side, where it's very hard to get malt that is anything other than very well modified. It's going to taste good. It's going to convert. It's going to work. Modern barley is an amazing thing. So you really kind of have to go out of your way to find an under-modified malt that you would need to do like a true decoction style brewing. And there are plenty of brewers both in the state and nationally and internationally that do seek out that under modified malt. For those guys, we've got a custom floor, so we can make custom batches of under modified malt, or we've had distilleries want very specific types of grain, so we'll help source a farm that will grow that for them and then do the custom malting,
which is so awesome because it gives you such a huge palette to offer and work with.
It's a lot of fun. Custom malting is always a fun conversation because people I'm not sure, they like the idea, but they're not sure, well, what specs would I want out of a malt, know? And so that's always fun to work with them and figure out what exactly they want out of their malt.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it was really cool to see the different processes. And so once y'all stopped at the germination, those next steps, can I try and see if I can say it right? Did y'all take it into the kiln? Is that the next step, or do y'all put it on the floor next?
Nope. So the kiln would be the next step. Yeah. So basically, it takes us about a week to make a batch, and so the first couple days are going to be in our steep tanks. So it's a couple days of steeping, and that's literally just soaking that barley. We soak it, drain it, soak it, drain it, and then once it gets to a certain moisture level and to a point we call chitted with a CH. And that's when the first little nubbin of a rootlet comes out.
And I liked the analogy that you gave of whenever you would, like, in elementary school, put, like, peas or beans or something on a wet paper towel and the little sprout came out.
Yeah. That
helped me understand it.
We're doing that, 12 tons at a time.
Yeah.
It'd take a long time of each individual grain. Just, all right, one paper towel, one grain, poop.
Yeah.
Exactly. So once that's reached that chitting state, we're going to take it and we're going to lay it out on the floor. And that's what really makes us different from everybody else. Floor malting is an ancient way of malting. Versus pneumatic malting, which is going to be the way most malt houses deal with it. With pneumatic malting, rather than having an employee go out and drag that rake like you guys did to turn the malt, which we need to turn the malt to regulate the temperature, and we need to keep the little rootlets from doing root binding. We've all, together. Come springtime, we go repot the plants, and that one needed it for a while.
Right.
That happens very quickly out on the floor. It goes from looking like Zen garden to little piles of malt. So every few hours, we got to go rake that out, and that's super labor intensive, and it costs a lot to do that. With modern systems, you've got pneumatic augers and things like that are controlling that process. So you can have very few people make a whole lot of malt. It's a whole lot more economically, profitable for them to do that. We would argue the benefit of floor malt is that you've got a more gentle touch, a more nuanced touch, and we're able to respond and react to the variances and pieces to get an incredibly consistent product out of it. Anything you would attribute to craft, handmade, small batch absolutely applies to what we're doing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's a couple days on the floor, and then we're going to go into the kiln for a couple of days.
Gotcha. Very cool.
And the kilning is probably the only secret data that we have. Maltsters are going to be really tight-lipped about what those temperatures and times are going to be. I don't know what they are. I've seen the schedules, and they look a lot like a German mash schedule, which makes a lot of sense knowing that there's that handoff between the maltster and the brewer to make those conversions. But what happens in the kiln, makes all of the different flavor and color differences that can exist in beer.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's so wild. We got to taste a few things, and it's just so wild that one barley grain can taste so different depending on the different variants of everything. So that was really unique for me to be able to taste that, because I really don't think I've had any malt, so it was a really unique experience.
Yeah, it's not, malt is one of those words that everybody kind of knows, but nobody really knows what it is. If you're not a brewer or maybe a distiller, it's going to be a really kind of a foreign thing.
Yeah, they're probably going to think of that maltomeal, just it wasn't even like oatmeal.
It was the kernels were a lot smaller than I thought. I think I thought they were going to be, in my head, I guess the size of similar to coffee beans and what my head thought, but I know I was completely wrong.
No.
So.
Yeah, they're pretty small, and barley's fairly big compared to something like wheat or rye,
right?
Too, but it's they're seeds from grasses.
Yeah, it's so wild. So y'all work with several farmers here in the area.
Yep.
So some of the small batches, you say maybe you source other farms that help you with that, what?
Yeah, so it's mostly organic stuff that we've got to reach outside of the state for. And there's certain things that just aren't grown in Maine or aren't grown organically in Maine. And so we work with some organic farms in upstate New York.
Oh, nice.
And that's where a lot of that stuff's coming from.
Gotcha.
But outside of the organic world, most everything is coming from within Maine.
Okay, very cool. I love that so much. And so do you connect with the farmers, or is that something, is someone else doing that and you're really on the side of the customer?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you get to do both.
Yeah, when it's we'll call them PR missions, where we're going up to do harvest trips with the brewers. I'm organizing all of that.
Okay.
Our head of production came out of the milling world, the flour milling
Oh,
world.
okay.
And he does a lot of the sourcing. If let's say a distillery comes and they want a special type of buckwheat or whatever. Benji, our head of production, will reach out into the farm network and basically be like, well, who grew this year?
Yeah,
And see where it's at. And sometimes that'll be local, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And it just depends on what the customer's needs and wants are for that. Most of the time it's local. There's really only one example I can think of where we're getting something from Saskatchewan. And that's for a very specific product, for a very specific project for one customer.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that makes sense of how close it can be. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess as you're preaching this gospel of the beauty of handcrafted, floor malt, craft malt, how has that looked for Blue Ox and its business? What are, if you can share some of that information, or have you gotten more accounts this year? That's where I'm trying to go with it.
Yeah, so we're growing.
Nice, good.
You can't do that big of an expansion without some money people wanting you to justify that.
Very true.
I would agree.
Very true.
That makes sense.
So we've always had a pretty good foothold in Maine and a decent foothold in New Hampshire, and dipped our toes into Massachusetts. We've really delved into Massachusetts this year, and we've opened up Vermont, Rhode Island, and Connecticut.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
We're really trying to get our own backyard really dialed in New England. That being said, we send barley down. We send malt down to Delaware somewhat regularly, and we've sent as far away as the Midwest and Florida.
Okay.
Oh, very cool.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
Well, maybe from this you'll get some more then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
West
we're all
Coast
about
people.
that.
Yeah, I love it so much.
Make more smoked beer on the West Coast.
I
Let's
know.
do it.
Can we talk about some of the like specialty stuff? So
Absolutely.
we would love to some of the stuff that we went
Still
through.
dreaming of that smoked critical.
I know.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about some of those cool things that y'all are doing?
Yeah, so we do a lot of specialty malts here, which is great to get not just a lot of people can find a somewhat local base malt option, but finding a wide array of specialty malts can be a little bit of a challenge on the local scene. So we do Munich malts, we do caramel malts, we do oat malt, wheat malt, rye malt, triticale. But we've also got a roaster as a part of our expansion. So this year we haven't officially released it yet, but we're starting to let some out in the market. But we're going to do a roasted barley, a chocolate rye, a roasted wheat, a biscuit malt, and then the golden triticale, which
Wonderful.
is just the tastiest thing on
It's
earth.
so good.
It's like I could literally eat handfuls of it, and like
Feels like a snack.
it does, yeah. If you put that in like a trail mix, I wouldn't bat an eye at it.
Nice. Oh, that's
Someone's gonna be like,
awesome.
"What's this?" And you're like, "Oh, just try it. Don't worry about it."
Yeah,
It's so good.
Yeah, exactly. And then when they know what it is, I'll call them a nerd. And,
There you go.
I love it so much. Yeah. So with some of those, like, do you reach out to breweries that you're like, "Hey, we got this. We would love for you to try something." Sometimes is that something y'all do?
Yeah, with the roasted stuff especially, because people have been asking us for roasted products for a long time.
Okay.
Saying like, could you please, this is the only thing I get from, a giant global supplier or whatever. And we would love, this is the only thing keeping us from being local or whatever. So we have been doing a lot of reaching out saying, hey, these things are on the horizon. Smoked malt, the other thing that we were looking at, we do our smoked malt essentially custom to order. So we like to tell people we can smoke pretty much anything with anything. So I've gotten some weird ones where people want the triticale smoked
Right.
or wheat smoked or something like that. So you can pick your grain and you can pick your smoke, and it's been it's popular in the winter. Everybody will get like a bag of it to do their like Grodziski like passion project.
Right.
But as American single malt is becoming a thing, we're getting a lot of interest from distilleries that are wanting to make big smoked whiskeys.
Yeah.
Nice.
And since we don't have like the peat tradition that like Islay in Scotland would have,
Oh, yes.
what kind of smoke that is. A lot of people, single malt equals smoky whiskey. My mother's Scottish, so I don't fully agree with that. But I see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But wanting to make it an American local thing, applewood, cherrywood, things like that, maple, seem really attractive to those
100%.
people to
Very
make it
attractive. Yeah.
an American thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it so much. Yeah. And it just seems like if someone can come up with something, it sounds like y'all are able to try it out and are willing to as well,
Yeah. I pointed out, I won't mention them exactly who we're working with here, but we're doing some specialty, really weird projects where we're smoking seaweeds for distilleries.
Which is gonna be cool with that salinity. I can already think of how that's gonna turn out.
Yeah, it's an interesting smell when they're like smoking the malt. When it's like a hickory smoke, it's like, oh, we all want barbecue.
Yeah.
It's got those like meaty flavors that a lot of people would associate with smoked products. And you start to get in some of these, we'll call them alternative smokes. It's like, what's going? Oh, yeah, that's going on today.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Especially when you're so used to maybe the smells around here. When it's something totally different, you're first, you're like alarm bells. You're like, what's going on? What's wrong? It's like, oh no, we're doing something unique today.
Totally. No, I was talking with one of these distillers, and I know enough about distilling and whiskey to get myself into trouble. I kind
just
of know what
drinking it.
goes on. Yeah, exactly. And they were explaining to me that you really can't go too smoky because the smoke is what the barrel will eat up. So
Very
if
true.
it's going to spend a long time in the barrels, you need a lot of smoke if you want some smoke on the other end.
I see. Yeah.
Which was kind of a new concept for me.
Yeah,
Oh, that's wild.
I guess that totally makes sense. I've never thought of it. I'm like,
Yeah.
that barrel's essentially like a sponge, it just is pulling everything.
Because
Yeah.
we were really worried initially, like, this is pretty strong. Like, are you sure? Is like, yeah, don't worry about it, bro. And it was like,
Yeah.
Okay, like you're the creator here. Like we'll
Right.
trust you.
Yeah.
And I've tried some of those. I tried a barrel that the liquid was put in maybe not even a year ago, and I was amazed at how much like the smoke had dissipated.
Oh, damn, okay.
On that, so
that's so cool. I love that so much that not only are y'all doing something really unique and like true to form of how malt was made, but also being able to craft it in a way that also helps the craft breweries or distilleries do their craft better. So it's like it's craft on craft on craft.
Yeah, you just open up a whole nother field of play that people may have not even thought of. It's like, oh shit, now we get to do this. I mean, it's essentially like I knock on it because I really don't like it. Like smoothie beers, I'm like, God. But here's the thing:
I'm
it's
with
like
you, bud. Preach it.
the whole thing with smoothie beers, we now have so much. We have better processes for like fruit purees that then will get used into beers that we enjoy. You know, like a Creek, or if you're sour beers that people will put in a little bit of fruit puree. And for me, I'm like, that's acceptable. But yeah, it just offers it all up. And brewers would have never thought that because it started with probably smoothie beers. And like, oh, these cans are fucking exploding. I'm not going to drink this shit.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, y'all being able to craft something so unique is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, smoothie beer lovers.
Yeah.
You keep doing you.
Yeah. No, for sure.
It's all good. Seltzers exist for them.
Yeah.
Yes.
True.
Right?
True.
Yeah. If you really want a fruity carbonated drink, you've got those.
Yeah.
Leave it out my Pilsner.
I mean, those smoothie beer people also tell me too. It's like you like drinking Schlenkerla. It's like you like drinking liquid smoke. I'm like, yeah, I guess you got me right there.
Yeah.
Oh man, so I was at a conference in Vermont a couple months back, and there was an after party at a brewery, and they had like a little 3% Grodziski on, and I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna be able to drink like 3-4 of those, still stay social,
Yeah,
not gonna be like
exactly.
drunk off my face, and like I get to session on a smoke beer, and it had been a long time since I'd had more than like one smoke beer.
Yeah.
So I woke up the next morning and I felt like I'd like smoked a pack of cigarettes. I was like, oh my God, I forgot. Oh, I went right back to my 20s real quick.
Right. You're trying to brush your teeth. You're like, I still taste it.
I was like, I don't regret this decision, but that was a lot of smoke I
That was
had
a lot
last
of
night.
Yeah. Yeah. People will always just be like, when I would order it somewhere in Portland, they'd be like, oh, you like the hot dog water, huh? And I'm like, it doesn't taste like that.
There's a time and a place for every beer.
Oh, 100%.
For sure. So I want to talk a little bit about y'all's team. Like, what does the team here look like? How do y'all operate? And then kind of, I think with the industry, like, how do y'all keep them, I don't know, not going to a brewery or like keep them around? I just wanted to hear about y'all's team.
We got to meet a handful of them before. They're all super loving, passionate people. That's what immediately stands out.
We're very fortunate that we have such a dedicated team that pays attention to the process, cares about the process, cares about quality. These guys love going out to breweries probably more than I do.
Yeah.
And they love going out there and being like, oh, like this is like the fruits of my labor.
Right.
You
Nice,
know,
yeah.
and they're starting to develop relationships with some of the brewers as well, which is just really exciting for those guys. And they're just really hard workers. Our warehouse manager literally skips and whistles, not facetiously. You'll just hear like Jurassic Park theme coming from around the corner, and it's
that's
like
awesome.
Dylan's having a great day.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It seems like a cool place to work. Just walking through, everyone was so nice to us and wanting to introduce themselves and share their stories and stuff like that. So it was so cool.
It's fun, and you can really take a lot of pride in what you do. You know, they work hard. It's tough, hard work. You dragged that rake. You see Zen Garden and realize that it's much more of a workout.
Yeah.
You know, pulling that
100%.
around.
I could see that it would be melodic, but then if you have to do it for a couple hours, I would definitely be like, all right, I want to do something else.
I think I made the joke to you earlier, but you know, Conan the Barbarian got jacked processing cereal grains.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You know, that's
Definitely.
it's a workout. Those guys get their podcasts in doing that though.
Right.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, they can listen to this one.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah. You're saying all these nice things and just laughing.
Yeah, I love it so much.
What's it like in terms of, we talk about this a lot in this industry, the balance between mental health and work and life? I think that's, especially in the alcohol industry, I think it is been a really hard subject for people to talk about because there probably is a lot of overconsumption that is playing a part into like a bad work-life balance or a bad environment at work. Do you have any like strategies or keys to success that you use here from your past experience?
Totally. So with my production team, I go to them for their answers and solutions because those guys have been doing it. They know it. They know what the problem is. They're the ones who are telling me that there's a problem coming up, and they've usually like thought it through and know like what the answers are. So I give them a lot of control over their like destinies.
Awesome.
Right now, everybody's got their ideal like schedule. So I've got about half the team on 4 10-hour days and the other half the team on 5 8-hour days.
Gotcha.
And that is 100% like by their request.
Sweet.
As far as like mental health stuff goes, I go to therapy every week. A lot of the leadership goes to therapy every week. We're all pretty open about like, yeah, I'm not here on Wednesdays middle of the day because I'm talking about my feelings.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's important.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important in the industry. You know, brewers have not been treated very well, financially speaking, and for a long time. And a lot of people have a lot of their identity wrapped up in this. And it is very difficult to try to balance that your identity isn't moving you forward in life. Which is an experience I think a lot of people have had in the beer industry, particularly since COVID, but I think kind of always, you know? And that balance has to be found. You know, we need to find a way to treat our brewers, pay our brewers, and help fulfill their lives so that they're happy people and loving of the communities that love them so much.
Right.
You know, so it is important, and we try to be very sympathetic and aware of these things and provide whatever we can for our employees. Because it is a huge issue in the beer industry. And that's also why you're seeing a lot of people leave the beer industry. A lot of really good, talented people are getting out as quickly as they can.
I would say kudos to you on your team, because I think one thing, and you do it so well, the communication is very clear. And I think that if it comes from you, I believe it goes top to bottom throughout this whole Blue Ox Malthouse crew, which I think is very, very important to have. Feeling like people can speak their mind and speak their responsibility, and also just kind of have a conversation with you and not necessarily see it as like, you know, manager to employee. It is just like person to person, being able to talk like that. And I liked what you said too about like getting your identity wrapped up, and that's why people are leaving. Like this industry has like some of the most crazy, ambitious, passionate, hardworking people you will ever fucking meet anywhere. And seeing those people leave, we've seen there's been a huge exodus in Oregon, like a lot of like really well-known brewers like leaving the industry because they put their heart and soul and their identity into somebody else's business if it's not their own, and it like gets lost, and they're not making money off of it. And there comes a point after years and years of being like taking that abuse that somebody finally just says, enough, I'm done, which is a shame.
It is. And, you know, hopefully they can find something that works for them before something more problematic than financials occurs.
100%.
You know, there's also plenty of stories of, you know, just people running into trouble.
Right.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
You know, however you want to interpret that is probably accurate.
Yes.
No, usually in the form of Deweys.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot. And I think it's really cool to like hear, I'm sure as a manager, like for your associates to know that like you're taking the time to take care of yourself and your mental health, and like to then like kind of lead the way for them of, you know, like this is good. Like we've talked to several places that a lot of the people are going to therapy, and we've been to therapy. We love therapy. Like
it's great.
It's a great thing. And so we want to continue to speak that message, and we love hearing when people are taking that on themselves and doing it so that their team knows like you should be doing this too if it's something that you need. And you know,
everybody needs somebody that'll listen to them rant about smoothie beers, you know, for an hour once a week.
on the long drives from one place to another.
Exactly.
I feel bad for that therapist.
Like, you see this motherfucker put marshmallows in a Pilsner?
They're like, the world's falling apart and this guy's upset about fruit puree.
Very true, right? It shows you my scope of what I'm willing to have a bandwidth for. Everything outside that, I'm like, whatever asteroid hits the Earth, dinosaurs come back, I don't give a fuck. But smoothie beers, no, I'm not going
to.
No, for sure. Love it so much.
Like, how you doing today? I'm like, Pilsners are coming back, baby.
We have heard that multiple times, and we are.
Well, right now it's rye lagers. Everybody keeps saying they want rye lagers back and they want ESBs back. So
I have had more ESBs and brown ales in the past 2 months than probably my entire career put together, and I couldn't be happier about it because they have largely been phenomenal.
It's also funny too to see the moniker people like amber ales, like, oh, those are really good, because now it's been so long, it's not associated with just dads in a garage getting drunk and like talking shit to each other.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, this style has died and is now being reborn.
Right.
I just laugh. We had Mac and Jack's Amber Ale all over Washington State, and that was like on every restaurant tap handle. And usually when you turn 21, I got off my shift, and that I think was one of the first beers I had out of a tap was a Mac and Jack's Amber Ale.
Yeah, love it so much. I did want to do a time check because I wanted to make sure.
Oh yeah. We're at 1:08, so
Okay,
we can do. Want to do the last two questions?
Yeah, well, I was going to make sure. Was there anything else that we wanted?
yeah.
We have two more questions that we kind of wrap up with every podcast. I wanted to make sure. Was there anything else that you wanted to share about Blue Ox? Of just like, we're going to ask you like what you're excited about for the future. But is there anything else you would want to share that you want the listeners to know about?
Oh man, everything.
You're like, do you have another few hours?
One, if you're a brewer, wherever you are in the world, go to Blue Ox, make the coolest fucking malt that you want. Buy it from them.
Do it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Please do. We would love to help you out.
Yeah, I love that.
I mean, there's nothing else specifically I wanted to touch on. You know, everybody should meet their farmers, and everybody should get way more involved in their supply chain. And as the market is popping and shrinking right now in the beer world, there's never been a better argument for those best practices.
Love it.
We've all been going to conferences for a decade now. We all know what those best practices are. The differences between the breweries that are getting by and the ones that aren't are the ones that really take those best practices to heart.
I love that. That's great advice.
Yeah, that is really good.
Before we get in the last two, do you guys want to do another one?
Yeah, let's do another.
Do you guys want to go light or dark?
Oh, let's do dark.
Yeah, let's do dark.
Dude, Woody's Tamave here.
I'm so excited. We used to, when I was at Elsewhere, we would do our check dark. They called it Jest. Yeah, Jest. And we would just stain it, which was my first time just like staining a beer. Because anytime I'd done a check dark before, it was always like thrown in. It's always like in the mill and in it mixed. Sorry, words are hard for my brain sometimes. It was already in the mill mixed together. And then like staining is just like the last little bit. You put a little bit in just to like really tinge it with color, but not give it so much of that like roasty character.
So,
ooh, that's a great color too.
So the first time Woody brewed this recipe was like, he probably brewed it right. It was like beginning of 2020, end of 2019. And at that same time, I had brewed a Hellesbock recipe there's a big Bach festival that happens down in Portsmouth at a brewery called Liar's Bench.
We've been there.
Love Liar's Bench.
Yeah, and the Bach Fest is almost more for the brewers than it is for like people. Everybody brings Bachs. Everybody tries to get weird with their Bachs.
I love it.
They do like this races where I'm blanking. They're like soapbox derby, basically type of thing that goes on. And so I'd made the Hellesbock for that. Woody made this Tamave. And so all of a sudden COVID happens and, tap rooms closed. Nobody knows if, tomorrow is even going to happen. Beer sales aren't happening. And we discovered that this Tamave floated on top of the Hellesbock perfectly for a half and half.
Oh, damn.
And so for like the first month of COVID, we were all just showing up to work, just drinking Bach and Tamave Lejec half and half.
I love it. Oh, that's so awesome.
When I die and go to heaven and they're like, all right, like you made it, like what beer do you want? I'm gonna be like, I want those half and half.
I want those half and half.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh, it's so good.
That is so great.
Woody is a seriously talented brewer.
This is so wonderful. And these are all from Tributary. So
these are all tributaries. I'm a little biased.
No,
but,
don't be.
Those guys.
This episode won't come out, but we are going to Tributary Brewing next week.
Yeah.
For a podcast.
So it'll be like a follow.
We'll put it on our Instagram story today. We'll do Blue Ox Malthouse and be like, coming for you, Tributary.
Yeah.
They'll do malt tastings with you there.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just to switch.
You could actually have it as an excuse for on a Wednesday to pop over and just drink beer. And be like,
oh,
hey guys, didn't know you were going to be here.
They're going to be like, Ian who? We've never heard of such a guy.
Yeah.
Love it so much. Okay, so our two last questions. One, okay, so you've already started out 2025 with this expansion. Y'all are doing so much, doing a lot of really cool things, really pushing those smoked products. Is there anything else that you're really excited about for 2025 or that Blue Ox is planning?
So the roaster.
The roaster.
You guys have gotten a big sneak peek. A lot of our customers know that we have it and have been asking about it. We haven't really told anybody that it's turned on yet. So
Do you want us to tell? Because we don't have many followers, but we can post it.
You're okay. It's
Okay.
good because we've started to leak it out. We've put some pictures on social media.
Okay.
There's a picture of me brewing at Maine Beer Co. yesterday.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know if they showed a wort picture or not, but it's black, so
Oh,
people are
ask
people
about
are
it.
gonna know.
Something's happening.
That's not normal.
Yeah, that's not Pilsner malt.
Yeah.
I think in particular the Golden Triticale is going to
Okay.
cause a little riot. It's just such a unique product that
It
most
was so
brewers
good,
have
yeah.
no experience with. I see it as kind of a competitor to Golden Naked Oats.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, use it in the same ways and the same proportions, but it's a completely different flavor. It's kind of like, all right, I
Yeah.
need an interesting malt to do this thing. It's another option in that G&O range. So I'm very excited to see the specialty malts coming off of that roaster.
I'm excited
Yeah.
to hear. I want to follow. I want to hear like
The
at
new-
the end of 2025. I want to hear like all the unique different malts that y'all or like the ways y'all roasted different things. I want to hear like
Yeah,
some
we'll
unique
definitely
ones.
inquire. And the New England area is blessed to have Blue
Yes.
Ox here. This is awesome.
We appreciate that. I mean,
Yes.
we're just so happy to be a part of this community. New England is, I love being here. And if you're a beer drinker and a food person,
It's a great place
it's-
and an outdoor. Like you literally have it all.
I feel like that way. You know, one of the mottos of Maine is the way life should be. It's like,
Very true. Very true.
We do.
I like
we
that.
Love it.
My favorite one too is like, was it New Hampshire? It's like live free or die.
Yeah.
that only applies to guns and motorcycle helmets.
It's-
Everything else is very
it's
strict.
So,
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It has been fun to go around the New England area and like see all the different things.
Yeah.
It's been super fun. Okay, 2025 looks like it's going to be a great year for y'all. Super excited for all the things that are coming up. And our last question for you is the same question we ask every person when we end our podcast is if you were to give your piece, I always mess it up too. I literally do.
I think it's just part of how you say it now. You have to.
I have to. If you were to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh man, don't go to college.
There you go. Hey, that's a great one. I'm a community college dropout. I was like,
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't really give that advice, but I graduated with a fine art degree in George W. Bush years. So, you know,
Yeah.
I know you all remember me from my successful painting career.
yes.
Very much so.
Yeah, I've got several pieces in the Louvre. It's
Yeah.
no big
yeah,
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. It's talking about like therapy. You know, I don't know if I don't have regrets or if I have all the regrets.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You know, I'm very happy that I'm here, and I don't know that any other path would have gotten me where I'm at.
Right.
And I do get a lot of fulfillment out of working so closely with the community and working with the farms. And I really feel like I'm doing like good work. You know,
Love
and
that.
I sleep easy at night. For my younger self, probably just to shut up and listen more.
Yeah. Good.
We could all do that probably.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
solid.
that. Yeah, it's great advice. We will shut up and start listening more as podcasters.
You guys have been great. This has been a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank
we
you so much,
appreciate
Ian.
it.
It's honestly so. This is our first Malt House to be at, so this is going to be a little bit different podcast, which we're so excited for, and hopefully we can continue to learn more about maltsters and going to different malt houses and seeing the different processes. But I am thankful this was our first one because it is such a unique place. And
Oh, yeah.
y'all are doing such a cool thing here, so we're super excited for y'all. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Amy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Cheers, friends.
Prost.
Roast.
Empty glass.
Oh, sorry, babe.
You're all good.
I
It
should
was
have
too
poured
good.
something in you.